Greetings to the Khmer community in Seattle, Washington, and to the Khmer community throughout the United States. It's a great pleasure to be with you once again and to be working with you on the important needs of bringing attention to the human rights and democracy problems in Cambodia today. This is an especially important day for us to be talking about these issues, and I think you know why. This is the 30th anniversary of the Paris Peace Accords being put into effect. And as you know, the Paris Peace Accords are of enormous importance to the Khmer community and to Cambodia. They set up the basic framework for the governance of the Cambodian country. And they established very clear standards regarding human rights and democracy that the Cambodian government agreed to abide by. Hun Sen would have us believe that the Paris Peace Accords are not relevant anymore. He has had interviews with a number of media channels and indicated in those stories that he felt that the Paris Peace Accords were dead, in his words, irrelevant to the Cambodian people. That was in the Voice of America. And in the Cambodia Phnom Penh Post, he indicated that the Cambodian people must be dreaming, in his quotes, if they think the ideals of democracy and human rights that are embodied and enshrined in the Paris Peace Accords still mean anything. Well, Hun Sen could not be more wrong. He would very much like to believe that he and his government are not bound by any requirements and standards, that he's free to do whatever he wishes. But the truth is that the Paris Peace Accords still are relevant. The standards that they established for democracy and human rights could not be more clear. And the Paris Peace Accords also embodied and brought into effect all of the other international treaties and agreements that relate to Cambodia as well, things like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Convention Against Torture, and other instruments like that. Cambodia has agreed and ratified all of these instruments, and they remain bound by it as they are referenced in the Paris Peace Accords. I want to show you a photograph that was in the Phnom Penh Post coverage that I just mentioned. It's a picture of Hun Sen when he was very, very young, of course. That was 1991. And there he is signing the Paris Peace Accords. He himself signed these agreements, understood what they meant, and remains bound by them. The second item of importance related to today's events concerning the Paris Peace Accords commemoration is that this day was chosen as the initiating day, the first session for the Cambodia Commission of Inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry was established by the Khmer people themselves to hold Hun Sen and his government specifically accountable for observing the requirements of the Paris Peace Accords and the other international agreements that the Paris Peace Accords referenced. What the Commission of Inquiry on Cambodia will be doing over the next weeks and months and throughout the coming year in 2022, will be conducting fact-finding hearings with victims of the various abuses and persecution issues that have been taking place over the recent years, and expert witnesses on these matters in order to make clear and establish beyond doubt that the Hun Sen government committed these abuses and are in fact bound by the Paris Peace Accords democracy and human rights standards. At the first hearing that was held today, and I hope all of you have seen it, if you have not, you can access it easily on the Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia website. It's there permanently, so you can access it at your convenience if you missed today's session. But at that session, a sample of the victims of persecution were given the opportunity to speak. That is a very important element of the Commission of Inquiry's work, namely giving the victims of persecution the opportunity to speak their mind, to speak the truth to power, and to tell what has happened to the victims, their family members, that has been kept secret for so long a period of time, or under wraps in different ways, by the government of Cambodia. In future sessions, many more of the victims of persecution will have the opportunity to speak and give their testimony. They have been silenced by the government of Cambodia for too long. The victims' cases that we heard about today with the Commission of Inquiry's first session were the cases of Kem Lay and Che Vichaya, cases that I'm sure all of you know very, very well. You know that they were assassinated, most likely with the assistance of government agents, for daring to speak out against government abuses, and in Che Vichaya's case, to organize workers and try to win better working conditions and wages. You know Kem Lay's story particularly well. He was killed a few days after making broadcasts informing the Cambodian people about a Global Witness report titled Hostile Takeover that documented the fact that Hun Sen family members had been benefiting from corruption and taking control of major companies at the expense of the Cambodian people. I wanted to read you a short quote from Hostile Takeover, the report of Global Witness. I wouldn't be surprised if these were the quotes that Kem Lay read on his broadcasts. This is what Hostile Witness said. We will show in this report how Hun Sen family members are amassing vast personal fortunes in Cambodia's private sector and wield significant control across most of its lucrative industries, with links to major international brands including Apple, Nokia, Visa, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, and Honda. The Hun Sen family includes a shady cast of characters, among them members implicated in $1 billion heroin smuggling operations, shootouts, a fatal hit and run, and land grabs that have caused mass displacements and destitution among Cambodia's rural poor. Can you imagine Hun Sen's reaction when he heard those quotes, and when Kem Lay had the nerve, the courage, to talk about hostile witness report on his broadcasts. Hun Sen was hit by Kem Lay where it hurt the most, with his family members. A few days later, Kem Lay lay dead from an assassin's bullet, with police and security vehicles on the scene, apparently knowing that the assassination was about to take place, and helping the perpetrator to escape. Those were not coincidences. Neither was it a coincidence when very substantial involvements of the government of Cambodia, Hun Sen's officials, were found to exist by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation in their investigation of the 1997 grenade attacks in Freedom Park against the opposition political party, where quite a few people were killed and wounded. One of the wounded people was Ron Abney, who was working in Cambodia for the International Republican Institute. That is why the Federal Bureau of Investigation sent a team to investigate the crime. And what did the FBI find that was reported to Congress when it completed its investigation? It found that the Hun Sen personal bodyguard unit, which, as everyone knows, is completely subject to the control of Hun Sen, helped the grenade throwers to gain access to the park and put themselves in position to throw their grenades, helped them to escape after they threw and made their attack, and even gave them refuge in the personal bodyguards unit own barracks in order to help them escape. Those were not coincidences. Nor was it a coincidence when members of Hun Sen's personal bodyguard unit once again were implicated in the very brutal near-death attacks against Ne Shabran and Kang Sofia, members of parliament, outside of the parliament building on October 26, 2015. There is an unfortunate pattern here, a common element, which is that the government of Cambodia is using this violence, is using these attacks as part of their policy of trying to prevent criticism and to subvert and eliminate effective political opposition. These are exactly the kinds of facts, case studies, documentation, and testimonies that the Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia will be receiving and hearing over the course of the coming year. These stories need to be told in detail and given greater attention than they have been given in the past. A stronger spotlight needs to be shined on the abuses that the Hun Sen government has been perpetrating against the Khmer people. And the Khmer people, in terms of using the findings of the Commission, need to forcefully demand that meaningful and effective sanctions and remedies be imposed against the Hun Sen government for committing these atrocities. There are a few recent models that I wanted to bring to your attention that give you an idea of the kinds of things that need to happen on a broader scale and hopefully will happen once the findings of the Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia are made public. Look at this headline. It'll surprise you. US and China reached deal to block Myanmar's junta from the United Nations. In other words, the General Assembly of the United Nations, just a few days ago, in September of 2021, reached an agreement that the Hun Sen junta was illegitimate as the government of Myanmar, Burma, and would not be acknowledged by the United Nations. Doesn't that sound a little bit like what's happened in Cambodia, where the elections were overturned by the government, and then the major political party in opposition was declared illegal? In other words, that there was an illegal election, an unfair election, that allowed the Hun Sen government to continue in power. That was one thing that happened. A second thing that happened was the Security Council of the United Nations, the agency of the United Nations that's in charge of peace and security issues, called for a reversal of the Burma-Myanmar coup and condemned the violence by the government of Myanmar. Something like that needs to happen for Cambodia as well, and the Commission of Inquiry's activities and findings will help make that happen. Even more to the point, and more directly in terms of what the Cambodian people around the world should be doing, is this headline: Cambodia loses duty-free access to the European Union market in August of 2020. An economic sanction was imposed by the EU against Cambodia. More of that needs to be happening, not only by the EU, but by individual governments that are trade partners with Cambodia, and by other groups as well. I will mention a fourth thing that just happened a couple of days ago. ASEAN, as you know, is the group of Asian nations, and they too raised questions about the legitimacy of the Hun Sen election and the Hun Sen government, and refused to allow Myanmar to be included in the ASEAN meetings. That needs to be applied as well to Cambodia. So there's a lot that needs to be done, and that the Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia will be putting us in a position to do on a better basis. These are the kinds of international pressures and sanctions that the work of the Commission of Inquiry will help make possible. So as we commemorate the Paris Peace Accords on this day, please join in the effort of the Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia to help make its standards for democracy and human rights more meaningful and more effective. There are a number of things that the Cambodian and Khmer people can do along those lines. Attend the sessions, all of the sessions of the Commission of Inquiry. Speak out forcefully in support of the advocacy efforts and the sanctions and other steps that the international community would consider taking as a result of the Commission of Inquiry's work. Organize your own economic sanction. Organize a boycott of Cambodia's economic interests. Global Witness just told us how the Hun Sen family is benefiting from so many of these industrial activities and the economic activities. A boycott would be an effective way to do that. The other things that you might want to consider relate to the things that Brad Adams of Human Rights Watch, that you know very well, suggested at a strategy session with the Khmer people that he held on July 18th. And his most important point in that strategy meeting was that the incidental improvements in the non-governmental organization law, for example, or the election law, for example, are not enough. That something more has to be done on an effective, meaningful, and systemic basis to make it clear that what the Cambodian government has been doing is not acceptable. He proposed two approaches that should be given very active consideration. The first was that there be a boycott of the elections, that no one should participate in elections that are meaningless, that are predetermined, that will result in Hun Sen being elected no matter what takes place. As happened in Myanmar and Burma, we have to make clear that what the government of Myanmar, the government of Cambodia has done is not acceptable and will not be legitimized by participation by other people and by other governments. The second thing that Brad Adams suggested was the formation of an alternative government, a government in exile, a shadow government, to demonstrate that the opposition political party, despite everything that's happened over the past few years, is alive, well, and able to effectively operate. These are all examples of the kinds of things that the Khmer community should be thinking about and considering. Now let me address a couple of key questions that I know are on the minds of many members of the Khmer community. Many of you have asked me these questions, and since we're in a virtual format and I can't respond directly to you, let me see if I can give you the answers of the questions that are of most concern to you. Number one, why will the Commission of Inquiry's work produce better results than what's happened in the past when things have not gone the way the Khmer people would prefer? One major difference is the involvement, the active involvement and support of the Khmer community itself. I remember reading the announcement, or one of the announcements of the Commission of Inquiry's work, and it struck me in such a strong way. It started off something like this: we, the Khmer people, recognizing that what has happened in the past has not worked effectively, have decided to take matters in our own hands and organize our own Commission of Inquiry for Cambodia in order to examine, document, shine a spotlight on the abuses and instances of persecution that need attention by the international community. That was so telling, that the Khmer community was taking things in their own hands. A very positive development. The other aspect that needs to be emphasized is that the Commission of Inquiry's work does not operate in an isolated way by itself. It works in conjunction with all the other international forums, all of the other international actors, foreign governments, the United Nations human rights agencies, to put pressures on the government of Cambodia. There was a statement that just came out by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, where she indicated that she was very unhappy in her report to the Human Rights Council of the UN with the abuses and acts of persecution by the Cambodian government. Those kinds of statements, those kinds of reminders and demands for change from every element of the international community needs to be mobilized. That is what the Khmer community can help to do using the findings, the hearings, the testimonies of the Commission of Inquiry. Another question is, why will the Commission's work have any impact on Hun Sen when he has made it crystal clear that he will not be moved by the international community's comments? The answer is very simple. Just a couple of months ago, Hun Sen signed a major contract, a very expensive one, with a public relations company in the United States, where he agreed to pay the public relations company almost $1 million per year to help improve his public image. That's a lot of money to spend, not only in this year, but in ongoing years, to improve your public image. Hun Sen is concerned about how the public and how the international community views him. And this was a perfect example of that. So when we shine a spotlight on the abuses and persecution that his government is committing, we are hitting him where it hurts the most, in his image and in his ability to carry out economic activities. Another question that's important to address is, how can the Commission's work be related to other international agency efforts? In other words, what else can we do as a community to bring attention to these problems and to demand change? And the answer is that we have to make use of every forum, every platform, every opportunity to bring attention to these problems. I'm a strong believer in Amnesty International's philosophy, which is that the best way to counter human rights abuses and to prevent them is to shine a strong spotlight on these abuses. Make it clear that the international community is watching, that Hun Sen is not free to do whatever he wishes without any standards being applied to him. That's what needs to be done in the upcoming meeting of the United Nations Human Rights Committee. They're going to be having an official compliance review session on Cambodia sometime in 2022. We have to make sure to bring to their attention every one of the problems that the Commission of Inquiry is raising. They're not the only agency and the only forum. I've mentioned the EU, and